I'm 35 years old. My mom's fiancé is 24. And he wants me to call him Daddy. Life has a twisted sense of humor, and nowhere was this more apparent than the day a 24-year-old kid asked me, a 35-year-old man, to call him Daddy. Let me paint you the picture. I'm the oldest of 3 siblings, thrust into a quasi-patriarch role when my father died 16 years ago. I was 19 then, barely figuring out how to be an adult myself, when suddenly I'm watching my mother navigate grief while raising my younger brother and sister. We survived it though. We more than survived, we thrived. Mom eventually found her footing again and started dating. Good for her, honestly. She deserved happiness after years of mourning. Our living situation made things interesting though. My house backs up to hers with a connecting gate, so we're practically neighbors. She does my laundry sometimes. I pop over for dinner and help with household projects. Every other Friday, all 3 of us kids gather at her place for family dinner. It's comfortable. Familiar. The kind of closeness that tragedy either destroys or strengthens. For us, it was the latter. But here's where the story takes a sharp left turn into Crazyville. Mom's taste in men started skewing younger. Not scandalously so at first. She's 58, so dating men in their 40s seemed reasonable. But each boyfriend was progressively younger until she landed on Phil. Sweet, earnest, 24-year-old Phil, who works part-time at the hardware store and collects manga with the fervor of a teenage otaku. Now, I'm not ageist. Love is love, right? If 2 consenting adults find happiness together, who am I to judge? Phil seemed decent enough. A little immature, sure, but he clearly adored my mother. They'd been together since last June, got engaged in autumn, and planned a summer wedding. My siblings and I gave our blessing because, ultimately, Mom's happiness was what mattered. Phil had some quirky habits, though. He insisted on calling me and my 30-year-old brother things like sport, scout, kid, and little buddy. My personal favorite was when he'd randomly assign us colors. I was red, my brother was blue, like we were characters in some 1950s sitcom he'd binge-watched. He tried calling my 28-year-old sister Princess once, but one withering stare from her shut that down permanently. Phil reminded me of Charlie Day's character from Horrible Bosses. This earnest, childlike enthusiasm about meeting a girl, getting married, and having the perfect nuclear family. When my brother jokingly pointed out that Mom might come up short on the having kids part of that dream, Phil got genuinely upset. They worked it out, but it was our first glimpse into just how deep this fantasy ran. The phone call that changed everything came on a random Tuesday. Phil asked if I could come over after work, and I assumed he needed help with some DIY project they were tackling. Standard stuff. But when I walked through that familiar gate into Mom's backyard, Phil was waiting with an expression I'd never seen before. Nervous, excited, almost vibrating with anticipation. "Hey, sport," he said, using that nickname that never failed to make me internally cringe. "We need to talk." Mom wasn't home, which struck me as odd. Phil led me to the living room, that space where I'd spent countless hours growing up, and suddenly it felt foreign. He sat across from me, hands clasped, looking like a kid about to ask for permission to stay up past bedtime. "I need to talk to you man to man," he said, and something in his tone made my stomach drop. Phil launched into this speech about how he'd always dreamed of being a father, how it was his deepest ambition to raise a son and guide him into manhood. I nodded along, figuring this was leading to some announcement about their wedding plans or maybe future family aspirations. But then, he dropped the nuclear bomb. "Now, I know I can never replace your father, the man who made you," Phil said, his voice trembling with emotion, "but it would mean the world to me if you could call me Dad."
Full story in the link below.